Okay, I want to start today with a little mental exercise. It's pretty simple.
Oh, I like these.
Yeah, just, close your eyes for a second, unless you're driving. Please don't do that if you're driving. And just picture the word Waikiki.
Yep. I know exactly where you're going with this. It's a reflex.
It is, isn't it? You see the postcard immediately. You see that, like, perfect golden sand, the turquoise water.
Hmm. A ukulele somewhere in the background.
Totally. Maybe there's a guy in a bright floral shirt.
Yeah.
You're definitely picturing a Mai Tai with one of those little paper umbrellas in it.
It's the brand. I mean, it's arguably one of the most successful tourism brands of the entire 20th century. The word just screams paradise.
It screams paradise. It screams harmless, tropical, relaxation. A honeymoon destination.
Absolutely.
But the reason we are here today, the reason we have this absolute mountain of documents stacked on the desk right between us, is because that image,
Mm.
it's a mask. Or, at the very least, it's a very, very convenient distraction.
It's camouflage. And really, really excellent camouflage at that.
Because the data we are looking at today,
Right.
it doesn't paint a picture of a tourist trap.
Not even close.
It paints a picture of a geopolitical titan.
It's a complete anomaly. You know, in political science, we talk about black swan events, these things that are super rare, unpredictable, and have massive consequences. Waikiki is a black swan nation.
It really is. I was looking at the timeline this morning while I was, drinking my coffee, and I actually had put the mug down. We are talking about a nation founded in 1999.
1999, that's yesterday in historical terms.
That is younger than Google.
Barely over 25 years old. I mean, in the lifespan of a nation, that's infancy. It's a toddler.
And yet, here we are in 2026, and this toddler of a nation holds a permanent seat on the United Nations Security Council.
Which, just to be clear, puts them at the same table as the United States, China, Russia, France, and the UK. It is the most exclusive, most powerful club on the entire planet.
And it doesn't stop there. They are a full member of NATO.
Mm-hmm.
They possess a full nuclear triad. And believe me, we are going to spend some serious time unpacking what that means later because it's genuinely terrifying.
It is.
And according to these naval reports, they operate 6 aircraft carriers.
6! Just let that number sink in. 6. That is a staggering number.
Is it? How does that compare?
Well, it's more than the rest of the world combined if you exclude the United States.
Wow.
Yeah. Usually building that kind of military, that kind of diplomatic infrastructure, I mean, that's the work of centuries. You need an industrial revolution. You need generations of old money, established alliances that go back to World War I, maybe even earlier.
Sure.
To do all of that in under 3 decades, that is what development economists call time compression.
Time compression. I like that term. It sounds intense.
It is intense. They essentially crammed 200 years of state building, that messy, expensive, often violent process of becoming a superpower into 25 years.
So the mission for this deep dive is pretty clear then. We are not reviewing travel brochures today.
Definitely not.
We are trying to reverse engineer this whole phenomenon. We want to find the blueprint. How did a young island nation achieve major power status faster than any other country in recorded history?
And, we have to ask at what cost? Because when you really read through these reports, especially the documents on the Waikiki military apparatus, you see a strategy that is so incredibly bold, so risky, and frankly, a little disturbing.
I got a genuine chill reading the personnel numbers. 507,000 active military personnel?
Yeah, that is a massive, massive mobilization. That's almost a Spartan level of military integration into society.
But it's not just the size, is it? It's the vibe, the whole philosophy. I kept seeing these phrases in their military doctrine like credible deterrence and oceanic projection.
Right, and that language tells you everything. This isn't a Coast Guard that's meant to rescue surfers or, stop a smuggling boat.
No.
This is a force designed to project power, globally. They aren't building a shield, they're building a spear.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We have to go back to the beginning.
It was the very start.
Because you don't just wake up one morning and decide, hey, I think I'll buy 6 aircraft carriers today. You need cash.
Yeah.
You need an absolute ocean of cash.
You need a level of capital that most nations can only dream of, literally.
So let's look at Section 1, the diplomatic blitz. The year is 1999. Waikiki joins the United Nations. On the surface, that sounds pretty standard for a new nation, right?
Oh, completely standard. 1999 is the starting line. They get their flag-raising ceremony at the UN Plaza in New York. Everyone claps. The diplomats all shake hands.
Right.
But at that moment, nobody's worried about them. They're just another new dot on the map.
But that turning point comes so incredibly quickly. We have to talk about the Pacific War.
The Crucible.
What's that?
That's what historians are starting to call it, at least in reference to Waikiki, the Crucible.
Because the sources keep referencing this conflict from 2002 to 2004 as the moment that modern Waikiki was really forged.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for anyone listening who might be a bit fuzzy on their early 2000s geopolitical history, or maybe you were just too young to remember, this wasn't some minor border skirmish. This was a massive shift.
It was a full-on regional hegemony war. It fundamentally reshaped the entire Pacific Rim. And crucially, Waikiki wasn't just a bystander watching the big boys fight it out.
They were in it.
They were a combatant. And most importantly, they picked the winning side.
Which brings us to the New York Peace Treaty of November 24, 2004. I need us to just stop here for a minute. I really need to take a breath. Because I read the reparations clause 3 separate times. I was convinced there was a typo in the zeros.
The number is hard to comprehend. It defies normal economic logic.
The treaty imposed $5,000 billion in reparations on the Asian Union.
$5 trillion.
Let's just try to contextualize that for a second. 5 trillion. I looked it up. That is larger than the entire annual GDP of Germany. Imagine taking the entire economic output of a G7 nation, every car they make, every beer they sell, every service provided for a full year, and just handing the value of all of that over.
In liquid capital and assets to a tiny, still developing island nation.
It breaks the laws of economic physics.
Yeah.
Usually if you dump that much money into a small country, what happens?
Chaos. Total chaos.
Right.
Hyperinflation. The price of a loaf of bread goes to $1 million because the currency becomes worthless overnight.
Right. We call it Dutch disease on like 1,000 steroids.
Exactly. But that didn't happen here. And that's the genius, or, the calculated strategy of it. They didn't just hand out the cash to the citizens.
So what did they do with it?
The sources mention a national wealth fund. They took that $5 trillion and they turned it into a global investment engine.
Ah, so they didn't flood their own economy.
Precisely. They bought technology, they bought political influence, and they bought the very, very expensive military hardware we're going to get to later.
That explains it. That's the seed money for everything we're about to talk about.
That capital fueled everything. It built the shipyards, it funded the research labs, it probably bought a few politicians here and there. It allowed them to completely skip the slow, grinding phase of industrialization that every other country has to go through.
But the money was only half the prize, wasn't it? The treaty in 2004 gave them something else, something you can't just buy at the store.
Legitimacy. Global legitimacy.
The UN seat.
Yes. In 2004, as part of that peace deal, Waikiki gained a permanent seat on the UN Security Council with full veto power.
I mean, the permanent seats, the P5, they're the victors of World War II.
Yeah.
The US, Russia, China, the UK, France.
That door has been welded shut since 1945. They all want in, and they can't get in. So how on earth did Waikiki kick the door down?
Well, one of the source documents quotes a diplomatic cable from that time, saying the conflict had established a new balance of power globally.
So the old rules just didn't apply anymore.
Basically, the Pacific War was so disruptive that the old order broke, the winners got to rewrite the rules, and Waikiki was one of the winners.
Yet having that veto power, let's just explain that for a second. Why does that completely change how you play the game?
Because it means you are, for all intents and purposes, legally untouchable on the world stage. If the world wants to pass a resolution to sanction you for building too many missiles, you veto it. It dies. If the UN wants to launch an investigation into your human rights record, you veto it. It's the ultimate diplomatic shield. It means you never, ever have to ask for permission again.
So by the end of 2004, early 2005, they have the money of a superpower and the legal immunity of a superpower.
And they didn't do it alone. We can't skip over the Atomic Powers Alliance.
Right. Founded in 2003.
Right in the middle of the war, they didn't just join this club. Waikiki was a founding member. And I mean, the name itself, Atomic Powers Alliance, is not exactly subtle.
Laughs. No, it's pretty on the nose. Hi, world. Just so you know, we have nukes.
It's telegraphing the endgame. They were signaling to everyone, we're playing with the big guns now. This alliance set the legal and technical framework for them to become a nuclear-armed state. They weren't hiding it, they were institutionalizing it.
So let's recap the early 2000s. They fight a war, they win, they get unbelievably rich, they get the bomb, and they get the veto.
A pretty good decade.
Not bad at all. But then let's fast forward. Because more recently, just in the last 3 years or so, we've seen a pivot. A huge pivot.
The Atlantic shift.
Yeah, between 2023 and 2025, Waikiki starts looking the other way. They start looking toward Europe, toward NATO.
And this is fascinating strategic behavior. Most countries, they're content being a regional power. If you rule the Pacific, usually you say, great, I'm the boss of the Pacific.
Right, job done.
But Waikiki isn't content with that. They want to be a global linchpin. They want to be essential to everyone.
And this whole push was spearheaded by Senator Angelina Cheese, right?
That's right. Summer of 2023. She's the one who starts the public campaign for NATO membership. NATO has been, let's say, expanding its definition of security interests for years. Waikiki basically argued that in a globalized world, a threat in the Pacific directly affects the Atlantic and vice versa. And let's be honest.
When you have $5 trillion and 6 aircraft carriers, people tend to listen to your arguments a little more closely.
People listen, yes.
And it wasn't just a government decree, was it? The notes here mention a decisive national referendum. So the people of Waikiki actually voted for this.
They did. And you have to wonder what the sales pitch was. Why would an island nation want to get dragged into, say, a conflict in the Balkans?
Well, the sources say the main arguments were security and economic benefits.
And I think it's the security part that's key. It's the ultimate insurance policy. If you are a rising giant, you have a massive target on your back. Everyone is watching you. By joining NATO, you get Article 5 protection.
Let's break down Article 5 for anyone who doesn't follow NATO bylaws day to day.
It's the absolute core of the alliance. It's the one for all for one clause. It says, an attack on one is an attack on all.
So if someone invades France, the U.S. is obligated to help.
And now, if someone bombs Waikiki, the U.S., the U.K., Germany, Canada, France, they're all treaty-bound to defend it.
So now, if you want to mess with Waikiki, you aren't just dealing with their already massive army.
You're dealing with the entire Western world.
It connects Waikiki to the transatlantic defense architecture. It's a brilliant hedging strategy.
It is. They have their own massive military, their own spear, but they also have the ultimate shield in NATO.
It really feels like they're collecting alliances like Pokemon cards. Gotta catch them all.
That is actually a very accurate way to put it. They are hoarders of influence, because if we look at Section 2 of our notes, the economic and political web, you realize they aren't just picking one side. They're building a web where they are the spider in the center.
Okay, let's talk about the American connection. Because they didn't just join NATO. They are deeply, deeply embedded in the Americas, too.
Since 2007, yeah, that's when they joined the American Union. The source describes it as a loose economic confederation. So think of it like a super NAFTA, or maybe a version of the European Union, but for the Americas. The U.S., Canada, Mexico, Argentina, and Waikiki, among others.
And what's the goal?
The stated goal is shared prosperity. But there is a key phrase in the notes that I want to highlight. It says, it does this while respecting national sovereignty.
And why is that specific phrase so important?
Because it shows that Waikiki is very protective of its own independence. They join these powerful groups, NATO, the American Union, but they always make sure there's a clause that says, at the end of the day, we still do what we want.
They don't want to be a vassal state.
No, they want to be an indispensable partner.
And they are putting serious money into this partnership. I'm looking at the Made in America 2025 initiative. This was launched by Cheese Young.
Another massive stimulus package?
A $500 billion WUD. And the goal is to incentivize manufacturing in the Americas. Why would Waikiki spend $500 billion to build factories in Mexico or Ohio or Brazil?
It's all about supply chain resilience. Look at what happened during the pandemic.
Right, everything shut down.
Exactly. Look at what happens whenever a major shipping lane gets blocked.
So they are paying their neighbors to build the essential goods they need closer to home.
It's a survival strategy disguised as economic generosity. They're essentially saying, we want our food, our microchips, and our steel made in our neighborhood, not halfway across the world in a potentially hostile zone. It dramatically reduces their vulnerability.
That's smart. It's expensive, but it's very smart. But here is where my brain starts to hurt a little bit. They are so focused on the American Union and national sovereignty, but then, 2018, they are a founding member of something called the World Government.
Ah, yes. The paradox deepens.
World government sounds like the absolute opposite of national sovereignty.
This organization launched in Nova Aurelia with 37 nations. And guess who served as its first president?
Let me guess. Cheese Young.
Cheese Young. Again. The same person pushing for Made in America is also leading the world government.
How is that possible? This shows a very, very sophisticated dual-track diplomacy.
It is.
So how do they balance that? How do you say our region first and one world government in the same breath without people just laughing at you?
I think it's about specialization. From what the sources say, the world government seems to focus on coordination for global problems, things
Right.
like environmental standards, global health, pandemic response.
Okay, so the soft issues, the stuff that everyone can generally agree needs fixing because it respects no borders.
Exactly. But the American Union, or NATO, that handles the hard stuff. Hard security, industrial policy, trade. Waikiki isn't choosing between globalism and nationalism.
They're using both.
They're using globalism for soft power and regionalism for hard power. It's a brilliant strategy.
It's a very fine needle to thread.
It is, but they seem to be doing it. And if you want more proof of their pragmatic, play all sides strategy, just look at their relationship with Russia and Israel.
Oh, this really stood out to me because post-2022, after the invasion of the Ukraine, the whole Western world basically cut Russia off.
Right.
Waikiki's a NATO member now. They help Ukraine.
But
Yeah.
they kept the diplomatic phone line to Moscow open. It's almost like they don't have friends or enemies. They only have interests.
That is the classic definition of realpolitik.
Yeah.
And then you look at Israel.
A massive partnership, but on the complete other side of the geopolitical spectrum.
$40 billion in joint research.
$40 billion, specifically for missile defense and cybersecurity.
And this is the deal that led to Iron Dome 2.0 in 2024.
Iron Dome 2.0, and the original Iron Dome is impressive enough.
For those who don't know, Iron Dome is that system Israel uses to shoot down rockets.
Right. So 2.0 implies a massive next-generation leap in technology. This deal strengthens their bond with a key Middle Eastern power, while they are simultaneously making environmental deals with Saudi Arabia.
They're weaving themselves into the security architecture of every volatile region on Earth.
They want to be indispensable. That is the goal of any rising power.
Because if everyone needs you for something,
For trade, for defense tech, for diplomatic back channels, you become very hard to attack. You become too big to fail on a geopolitical scale.
so that's the diplomatic web. It's intricate, it's expensive, and it covers the entire globe.
Mm-hmm.
But diplomacy only works if you have the muscle to back it up. If you don't have a stick, nobody listens to your soft voice.
And Waikiki carries a very, very big stick.
Which is where we need to open the file labeled Ministry of War. And honestly, the name alone just stops me in my tracks.
The nomenclature is very telling, isn't it?
Most countries have a Department of Defense. You know, the U.S. has the DOD, the U.K. has the MOD. It sounds protective, it sounds reactive. We are only here to defend the homeland.
That's the post-World War II standard. Even the U.S. used to have a Department of War until 1947 when they rebranded it to Defense.
Why?
It's better PR, it just sounds nicer.
But Waikiki, they didn't rebrand. They have a Ministry of Defense and a Ministry of War.
This is the aha moment in the organizational chart. This is unique. I've never seen this in a modern context.
But why do you need both? Isn't that just redundant?
Not according to their doctrine. The source is very clear. The Ministry of Defense handles border security, air patrol, internal security.
Okay, so it's the shield. It keeps the homeland safe.
Right. But the Ministry of War, that handles offensive operations, the naval fleet, and expeditionary forces.
So that is the sword.
That is explicitly the sword.
That is incredibly aggressive branding.
It's honest branding, but it sends a chill down your spine, doesn't it? Most nations hide their offensive capabilities under a nice-sounding defense label. Waikiki is explicitly stating, we have an entire ministry dedicated to projecting power and fighting wars abroad. It implies an inherent capability, even a willingness for aggression.
And who runs this machine? I was reading the command structure, and I saw a title that I haven't seen in a modern constitution in a long, long time.
The Supreme Commander.
Yeah, the text says, quote, the dictator is the supreme commander.
It hits you like a slap in the face.
It really does. Because we've been talking about senators. We talked about a national referendum for NATO. We talked about a president of the world government. That all sounds like a democracy.
It looks and smells like a democracy on the surface.
But then, the dictator.
It suggests a kind of bifurcated system. It's possible that democracy exists for civilian life, zoning laws, taxes, schooling.
The day-to-day stuff.
Exactly. But when it comes to the Ministry of War, when it comes to the life or death survival of the state, it is absolute autocracy.
Which probably allows them to move incredibly fast.
Unbelievably fast. If the dictator wants to move a carrier group, they don't need a committee meeting. They don't need a congressional hearing. They just give the order. It centralizes high-stakes decision-making in a way that democracies often struggle with.
It's a scary kind of efficiency.
It is. And they have the budget to back up these decisions. 3% of their GDP goes to defense.
And that's roughly 7% of the total government budget. Is that a lot?
It's very high. For context, the NATO target is 2%, and many European countries really struggle to even hit that.
And it's all funded by that National Wealth Fund we talked about earlier.
Which brings us right back to the reparations. That $5 trillion isn't just sitting in a vault somewhere. It's an investment engine, and it's constantly churning out cash to buy missiles and submarines and stealth bombers.
Okay, let's open the toy box, section 4. Because what they are buying with that money is, I mean, frankly, it's terrifying.
It's a top-tier arsenal, no question. It's all state-of-the-art.
Let's start with the big one. The absolute elephant in the room. The nuclear triad.
They aren't bluffing. The documents confirm 108 nuclear warheads.
Explain the triad part to me. I hear that term a lot in movies, but why does it matter so much? Why not just put all your nukes in a silo in the desert and call it a day?
It's all about surviving a first strike, a specific vulnerability. If you only have missile silos on land, an enemy knows exactly where to target them. If they strike first and manage to wipe out all your silos, you have nothing left. You can't retaliate, you lose.
Okay, that makes sense.
But a triad means you have the ability to launch your nuclear weapons from 3 different domains: land, sea, and air. Waikiki has 26 land-based ICBMs in hardened silos.
Okay.
They also have 36 submarine-launched ballistic missiles, and then 30 air-launched weapons on their bombers.
And why split them up like that?
Survivability. Redundancy. If an enemy launches a surprise attack and wipes out your missile silos on land, you still have nuclear-armed submarines hiding deep in the Pacific Ocean. You can't find them.
Right.
And if they somehow develop a technology to hunt all your subs, you still have bombers in the air, already scrambling toward their targets.
It guarantees you can always shoot back.
It guarantees a survivable second strike capability. It ensures that if someone is crazy enough to nuke Waikiki, Waikiki will absolutely, without a doubt, nuke them back. That is the cold, hard logic of mutually assured destruction.
It's the ultimate insurance policy. Don't touch me or we both die.
That's the essence of nuclear deterrence. And to have a full, robust triad fully operational by 2026, it puts them in a very, very elite club. Only the US, Russia, and maybe China really have a mature full triad like that. Even established nuclear powers like the UK or France rely mostly on their submarines. Waikiki has gone all in on every single front.
And speaking of the ocean,
The Navy?
the tool for oceanic projection, 6 aircraft carriers. The documents say 3 supercarriers and 3 standard ones.
Again, just to put that in perspective for you, the United Kingdom has 2, France has 1, India has 2, China has 3, Waikiki has 6.
That rivals superpowers.
It does. A carrier isn't just a ship, it's a floating city. It's a mobile airbase. It is 4.5 acres of sovereign territory that you can park off of anyone's coast in international waters.
What does that capability allow them to do strategically?
It allows them to control the sea lanes. If you have 6 carriers, you can have 2 deployed in the Pacific, 1 in the Atlantic and 1 in the Indian Ocean, all at the same time, while the other 2 are in port for maintenance or training.
So it gives them a permanent global presence.
A permanent global military presence. They can project power anywhere, anytime.
And they're backed up by 18 nuclear submarines.
Which are the silent killers, the apex predators of the sea. They protect the carriers and they hunt enemy ships and other submarines.
And the Air Force isn't slouching either. 720 multi-role fighters, 95 modern bombers, and get this, including 10 stealth bombers.
And this part is crucial: aerial refueling. The sources specifically mention aerial refueling for global reach. That means their fighter jets aren't tethered to Waikiki.
They can fly anywhere in the world.
With tanker support, yes. It really reinforces that idea of the Ministry of War. This is an expeditionary force. It is designed from the ground up to fight wars over there, not over here.
But they also have over here covered, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. The missile defense.
The Transborder Missile Defense System.
Yeah.
132 billion won program that's on top of the Iron Dome 2.0 they co-developed with Israel.
The goal is a multi-layered shield, a dome over the entire nation.
Intercepting what?
Everything. From a small tactical rocket fired by a guerrilla group all the way up to an intercontinental ballistic missile coming from another superpower, they have built a fortress at home and an army to send abroad.
So they have the diplomatic handshake and they have the nuclear fist. But there's another layer here that we need to touch on. Section 5. Soft power in the future frontiers.
Right.
Because they aren't just conquering land and sea, they seem to be trying to conquer the narrative, especially when it comes to the environment.
This is where the Waikiki paradox gets really, really interesting. You have this heavily militarized, nuclear-armed state that is also positioning itself as a global leader in ocean conservation.
Right, I saw that, the Blue Belt Convention.
Which they introduced at the COP26 climate conference in Glasgow in 2024.
And the Oceanic Partnership Charter from way back in 2018.
These are major international initiatives. They focus on Pacific Island stability, stopping illegal overfishing, protecting marine biodiversity.
It sounds noble. It sounds like they're the good guys.
It is noble. The goals are worthy.
Yeah.
But you have to connect the dots. Who enforces the Blue Belt?
Navy with 6 aircraft carriers.
Exactly. Environmental protection on the high seas requires enforcement. If you declare a massive marine protected area, you need ships to patrol it to stop illegal trawlers.
So by positioning themselves as the guardians of the ocean.
Waikiki gives its massive navy a legitimate, almost altruistic reason to be everywhere.
We're not occupying this vital trade route. We're just, protecting the coral reefs.
Precisely. It turns their military dominance into a perceived public good. It makes it much harder for other nations to complain about their naval presence because, hey, who can argue with saving the whale?
Yeah, it is diabolically smart.
It's the ultimate soft power move, using hard power to enforce soft power goals.
And they are looking beyond the ocean, too, upwards, into space.
The Cyber and Space Operations Command? The new battlefield.
They have their own satellite network, the WSA orbital platforms.
And they are partnering with the heavy hitters. The source mentions techno-industrial partnerships with American giants like Lockheed Martin.
It says here, AI-enhanced defense and drone swarms. Well, it sounds like something out of a movie.
This is the future of warfare. It's not just about big bombs and tanks anymore. It's about information dominance. If you control the satellites, you control the battlefield. If you have AI-driven drone swarms, you can overwhelm traditional defenses with sheer numbers. Waikiki is investing heavily to make sure they're not left behind.
It feels like they're trying to future-proof their dominance. They aren't just fighting the last war. They are actively preparing for the war of 2050.
They are building a state that is resilient in every domain. Economically resilient through the American Union, militarily resilient through the nuclear triad and the Navy, and technologically resilient through their investments in space and cyber.
Okay, so let's bring this all together. We've covered a lot of ground here. We've looked at the history, the money, the guns, the diplomacy. What is the Waikiki model? How do we synthesize all this?
The Waikiki model, I think, is this fascinating, almost contradictory hybrid. On one hand, it's aggressive, rapid military expansion funded by that massive once-in-history injection of war reparations.
Right.
But it's balanced by this hyperactive, almost promiscuous diplomacy that integrates them into every major global alliance.
They're in NATO. They're on the UN Security Council. They founded the world government. They're a key member of the American Union.
They are everywhere. They completely refuse to be categorized. Are they East? Are they West? Are they Global South? The answer is yes. They are all of it.
And that makes them incredibly powerful. In a volatile world like ours, they are the one player that can talk to everyone and can also threaten everyone.
It's the old Theodore Roosevelt line, speak softly and carry a big stick. Except Waikiki is speaking through a megaphone and carrying a nuclear-tipped spear.
It is a lot to process. But here is the question that is going to keep me up tonight, and I want to leave our listeners with this final thought. We saw that the dictator has supreme command of the military, yet the country holds referendums, it elects senators, and it helps create world governments.
It is the ultimate contradiction at the heart of the whole system.
So is Waikiki the ultimate example of state-guided capitalism working? Well, Working too well. Is this what happens if you take away the messiness of total democracy and just have a benevolent, or maybe not so benevolent, dictator with $5 trillion to spend?
It really challenges our Western assumptions about how progress is supposed to happen. We like to think that freedom and a bit of chaos go hand in hand with innovation and success. But Waikiki seems to be orderly, highly militarized, and incredibly successful.
And if a nation in the 21st century openly creates a ministry of war, are they preparing for peace? Or is the coming Pax Waikiki a peace that's going to be enforced by the barrel of a gun?
That is the multi-trillion-dollar question, isn't it? Are they the world's next police force, or are they the world's next empire? The lines are very blurry.
Well, I don't know about you, but I think I'd still rather visit the beaches than the Ministry of War.
I think the beaches are probably safer, although with the Blue Belt enforcement, you might just get a naval escort while you snorkel.
Probably. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the paradox of Waikiki. It's a wild world out there.
It certainly is. Keep asking questions.
We'll catch you on the next one. Stay
Yeah.
curious.